Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Her Journey to Self podcast. My name is Tamara and I am your host. If you are listening, I am happy to announce that we are now launched on YouTube. So head on over to Her Journey to Self YouTube page. And for a limited time, I will also be airing the show on my personal page, Tamara J. Morris. So go ahead and join the family over there as well. First, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who listened to the first episode. I received so much love, but I was terrified. My husband sent me a beautiful voice message the morning after I released the episode. There were some things that he didn't really understand or know fully about my experiences, and he was just really touched. And he encouraged me to keep going and told me what I was doing was so important and needed. So thanks, babe. And then he proceeded to send the episode to all of his family and friends. And I wanted to crawl under the covers and hide for the rest of the day. I am trying to be intentional about this vulnerability thing, but it ain't easy. And I think it's harder to be vulnerable with the people who know you. For people who don't know you, you're starting with a blank slate. But for friends and family, I think there's this fear that you're going to be seen in a different light, or you're revealing parts of yourself that you've been hiding all along. So it is hard, but I am committed. I also had a really good conversation with my homegirl, Michelle. Hey, girl. And let me just say, get you some good quality friends in your life. It is so important to have good friends. Surround yourself with people who encourage and uplift you. It is imperative. But our conversation also confirmed that I am moving in purpose, and that was just so encouraging. So let's jump into today's topic. So a few years ago, I realized I had a habit. And this habit was birthed out of my need to protect myself mentally and emotionally. However, it's really just a mask that does more harm than good. I'm talking about finding comfort in pain. And that sounds counterproductive, right? But let me explain. I started to believe that rejection and failure was inevitable, no matter how hard I tried. And I'm pretty sure that being an actress has contributed to this a lot. I mean, you can go on 100 auditions before you finally get a yes. And that can really start to weigh on you. You really start to doubt yourself. You feel like you're not enough, or you feel like the world is against you. And that's a thought that I really struggle with, especially when it seems like there are a million things that aren't working out in my life. And it's crazy because I think the word for my life is perseverance. I keep going. I keep pushing. Now, there are times that I want to quit, like a lot. But there's just something in me that won't give up. And I know it's God. I know it is. But I definitely step away from things. I always, in some form or another, I find my way back to them. But it's in those moments that I do step away that I find myself sitting in my disappointment. And I do this because I know what it feels like. I ask myself, what's the point of trying when it feels like nothing ever works out anyway? Why take this untraveled road where it may lead to a new level of insecurity and upset? I may as well just sit in this pain because it has become comfortable. It's familiar. It's the way I deal with it without actually dealing with it. And I'm pretty sure you know what this looks like. It looks like binging that TV show all night. It looks like eating a pint of ice cream every night. It looks like not opening your devotional journal for a week. It looks like ignoring your accountability partner's phone call. It is rebellion. It is literally rebellion. We know what we need to do to care for ourselves during these low moments, but we intentionally choose to swim in the pain because sometimes it's just easier. Dealing with our emotions, our stuff, can be really difficult at times. And sometimes I believe we think we deserve to feel bad for ourselves. It kind of becomes this reverse self-care ritual. For me, it can look something like this. I experience a disappointment or setback. I then have feelings of sadness and or anger. I don't read my affirmations or devotional for the day because I think it's stupid. Very childlike attitude. I order food because I don't feel like cooking or I deserve a treat. I skip my workout because I'm just too tense or I feel like I'm just going to fail at that anyway too. I turn on one of my favorite shows and binge for hours just to escape. Eventually, I tell myself to snap out of it and none of this is helpful. So I refocus, I regroup, and I get back to work. But I haven't done anything to stop this perpetual practice. When I worked as a teaching artist, I would constantly tell my students, practice makes permanent. You train yourself to continue bad habits. It's in our minds, but it's also in our bodies. And I found this excerpt from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear that says, your life today is essentially the sum of your habits. How in shape or out of shape you are, how happy or unhappy you are, how successful or unsuccessful you are, a result of your habits. What you repeatedly do, what you spend time thinking about doing each day ultimately forms the person you are, the things you believe, and the personality you portray. I just thought that was so good. And then he breaks it down. The process of building a habit can be divided into 4 simple steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. And I found this really interesting. So the cue triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. It's a bit of information that predicts a reward. So today he says we spend most of our time learning cues that predict secondary rewards like money and fame, power and status, praise and approval, love and relationships, or a sense of personal satisfaction. And because the cue is the first indication that we're close to a reward, it naturally leads to a craving. So what you crave is not the habit itself, but the change in state it delivers. So the example he gave is that you do not crave smoking a cigarette. You crave the feeling of relief it provides. The response is the actual habit you perform, which can take the form of a thought or an action. And finally, the response delivers a reward. Rewards are the end goal of every habit. The cue is about noticing the reward. The craving is about wanting the reward. The response is about obtaining the reward. We choose rewards because they serve 2 purposes. They satisfy us and they teach us. This is so, so good. He also says that all behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem. Sometimes the problem is that you notice something good and you want to obtain it. Sometimes the problem is that you are experiencing pain and you want to relieve it. Either way, the purpose of every habit is to solve the problems you face. Man, I really need to read this book. It is so on point with what I'm feeling for this episode today. So now I want to put this in context. He gave a few examples, and the one example that I believe that we all can relate to is this one. So you hit a stumbling block on a project at work. Cue. You feel stuck and want to relieve your frustration. Craving. You pull out your phone and check social media. Habit. You satisfy your craving to feel relieved. Checking social media becomes associated with feeling stalled at work. Reward. I am such an analytical person, and this really just puts everything in perspective to me, to really break down the habit, and then furthermore to break down the cue of the habit. Like, why do I continuously do this? What is motivating me to continue this bad habit in the first place? So this is really, really good. Listen, life is going to happen. Many times we can't control how events unfold in our lives. We can, however, control how we respond and react to them. But I know that is easier said than done. Trust me, I know all too well. And there have been times where I literally did not want to leave the house. Even making a quick trip to the store around the corner, a 2-minute walk, just seemed like too much effort. But I did learn something when I did finally get up and go get myself some groceries. As soon as I stepped outside and I let the fresh air hit my face, my mood instantly started to change. It was like this weight started to lift. All I had to do was take a step. And I think sometimes we get stuck in this idea that healing and transformation needs to be this long, drawn out process full of grand moments. And I'm not saying that the process will be quick and easy. It's going to take some time, but all we have to do is move. There can be healing and transformation in each and every step of the way. I have this image of an artist in my mind. They start with a blank canvas, but with each stroke of the brush, it begins to transform. A line becomes a shape becomes a petal becomes a flower becomes a bouquet. Each step was needed. Each step contributed to this beautiful piece of artwork. I want us to stop doubting ourselves. I want us to believe in ourselves. I want us to forgive ourselves. I want us to give ourselves grace. Why is it that we can so easily pour life into others while pulling life out of ourselves? Imagine how powerful we could be. Imagine how impactful we could be if we took every opportunity to lift ourselves up, especially during those times of despair. And with most things, I think it starts with acknowledging the problem. Let's be honest with ourselves. Then we need to make a plan to counteract it. Make a plan, write it out, and then start to implement it. But that's the hard part, the follow through. For example, I would tell some of my friends who are trying to eat healthier to keep kind of like an action journal, and this works for all areas in your life. But if you have a sugar addiction and you always find yourself reaching for or buying treats, take a moment to quickly write in your journal or your phone why you want that treat at that moment and how consuming that treat will get you closer and take you further away from your goals. Then, after that, assess if you still want it. Now, ask me how many times I actually implement that in my own life. Don't get me wrong, I think about it all the time. But again, it goes back to that rebellious spirit and feeling like I deserve it. And also protecting myself from feeling disappointment again. But, you know, what I'm really saying is I deserve the opposite of health and success. Let's be honest. We need to shift our perspective and stop believing the lies. So, our action plan. Make a plan. Write it out. Implement it. And I really do believe in the action journal. Taking a moment to actually sit with my thoughts and walk through the consequences is really helpful for me when I actually do it. So that is my pledge, to actually take my own advice. I encourage you all to do the same. So I think it would be best to end with some affirmations. So write these down, post them where you can see them. Most importantly, post them on your heart. Say them out loud. You can say them right now if you want to, okay? I am capable of healing. I am capable of transformation. I am not my circumstances. I can change my thoughts. I am not prisoner to my bad habits. I am worthy. I am healed. I am transformed. Man, just saying that out loud feels so good to my soul. It's therapeutic. Remember, practice makes permanent. Just like we trained ourselves into bad habits, we can train ourselves into good ones, healing ones. Whew, I feel like we unpacked a lot here today, and I would love to hear about your own action plans and how you plan to implement them. So go ahead and follow Her Journey to Self on Instagram, and let's chat about it, all right? I would also love to know how you are enjoying the podcast, so please leave a review. Also share with all of your friends so we can grow the Her Journey to Self family. You can listen wherever podcasts are streamed, including Apple and Spotify. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Remember, your testimony is not for yourself, it's for the world. Until next time, peace, love, and light.